Hello, welcome to my channel, Leah Decodes. Do you ever notice how she never calls you first? Not a single text, not a single check-in, nothing. But somehow she expects your attention, your time, your energy, and you sit there waiting, wondering what went wrong. Maybe you tell yourself, I'll give her space, or I don't want to seem desperate. But inside it stings, that silence, that emptiness on your phone. It's not just absence, it's a message most men fail to decode. Here's the truth that no one is telling you. Women are wired differently emotionally and socially. When she doesn't initiate contact, it's not necessarily about you being boring or uninteresting. It's about how she experiences desire, attention, and security. Women naturally tend to let men chase. And the chase isn't just about ego, it's about emotional evaluation. When a woman never calls or texts first, she's subconsciously testing your value. She's watching to see if you have a life that isn't centered around her. If you can handle uncertainty without crumbling, if you can ignite her curiosity instead of feeding her boredom. And here's the harsh part most men miss. If you always initiate, if you are always the one bridging the silence, you slowly become predictable. Predictable is invisible. Predictable is forgettable. Your effort becomes expected. Your presence becomes a habit. And habits aren't exciting. They don't spark desire. They don't make her heart race. They make her comfortable. But comfort doesn't fuel passion. It fuels indifference. But there's a power in understanding this pattern. There's a way to shift the balance, to stop chasing and start leading without being cold, distant, or arrogant. You don't need to manipulate. You don't need to play mind games. You need strategy. The first step is awareness, recognizing that her silence is not personal. It's a reflection of how she perceives attention, value, and emotional investment. Once you see it, you're no longer reacting. You're observing, and that's where true power begins. Most men, when faced with this silence, double down. They call more, text more, overanalyze her last response. They drown in their anxiety and fear of loss. But that approach only lowers your value in her eyes. It signals desperation. Desperation kills attraction. High-value men, the ones women talk about in whispers, they respond differently. They respect the silence. They honor their own lives, and they make their moves in ways that are invisible yet magnetic. And here's a secret rarely spoken aloud. When you stop filling the void, when you stop chasing her need for constant validation, something incredible happens. You stop being just another option. You start becoming a mystery, a presence she notices even when she's quiet. She begins to wonder where you are, what you're doing, why you're not at her beck and call. Curiosity replaces boredom. Desire replaces complacency. And the balance of attention begins to shift because attraction is not given. It's earned silently, invisibly, through your ability to command your own life. So before you pick up your phone again, before you hit send on that text you've been crafting for hours, ask yourself, am I acting from scarcity or am I acting from value? Scarcity makes you predictable. Value makes you unforgettable. And this is the first truth every man who's ever struggled with a woman's silence must understand. She's not calling first because she wants to measure you. She wants to see if you're the kind of man who's worth her time without her having to demand it. And the men who learn this secret, who understand the psychology behind her actions, they stop chasing and start attracting effortlessly, unapologetically, powerfully. Now let's get into what actually happens in her mind when she doesn't call or text first. Most men think silence is rejection. That if she's not reaching out, she's lost interest, or worse, she's playing games. But the truth is far more intricate, far more powerful, and understanding it is what separates men who remain invisible from men who command attention without even trying. When a woman remains silent, she is unconsciously assessing multiple things at once. She's testing your emotional stability. Can you handle uncertainty? Can you maintain confidence without constant reassurance? She's evaluating your independence. Do you have a life that doesn't revolve around her every mood swing, every whim, every fleeting feeling. And she's gauging your desirability. If you chase her every silence, if you bend over backwards to fill her void, she experiences that as scarcity. Scarcity is unattractive. Scarcity feels weak. Scarcity makes you ordinary. Here's where most men fail. They misread patience for disinterest. They interpret her non-initiation as a reflection of their worth. Instead of understanding that it's a reflection of her psychology, women are wired to notice the man who isn't consumed by their absence. They're subconsciously drawn to him because he projects a sense of self-possession and inner power that's irresistible. She doesn't just want attention, she wants value. She wants to invest in someone who's already invested in himself, someone who has his own passions, his own life, his own magnetic force. And this is why your first instinct, the urge to text her first, to break the silence, is exactly what's killing attraction. You're reacting to her energy. You're giving her control. You're reinforcing the very pattern that keeps you chasing. The high-value response isn't reacting. It's creating an invisible pull that draws her in. It's about strategic silence, selective engagement, and the deliberate cultivation of a life that is not only independent but compelling. You might be thinking, so what do? Do I just wait around? No. Waiting aimlessly is passive. What you do is elevate. You occupy your own time with purpose. You pursue your goals, your passions, your physical and mental growth. You engage with your world in ways that demand your full presence. And when you do reach out, it's intentional, it's brief, it's meaningful, it's value-laden, not a desperate plea for connection, not a timid hope for attention, but a clear reminder that you are a man with his own gravity, and she's either drawn to it or she isn't. Here's the subtlety many men miss. Absence creates curiosity, but value sustains desire. If you simply stop calling, if you simply withdraw, curiosity might spike temporarily, but desire fades without the underlying value that backs it up. You must balance silence with potency. Silence alone makes you mysterious. Value alone makes you respected. Combine the two and you become magnetic in a way that words cannot explain. She will notice, she will wonder, she may even initiate first, but only because your presence has become irresistible. Only because she senses your autonomy. Only because you are no longer someone she can control through attention alone. So remember this every time you feel the urge to text her first. Ask yourself, am I acting out of fear, need, or insecurity? Or am I acting from strategy, confidence, and personal power? Your response in that moment is the psychological pivot point. Make the wrong choice and you reinforce her silence. Make the right choice and you shift the dynamic entirely. The men who master this understand that attraction is less about communication and more about energy, perception, and the invisible hierarchy of desire. Now let's dive into the part most men never understand. The subtle triggers that make her start seeking you, even when she has spent weeks, months, or even years never calling or texting first. This isn't manipulation. This isn't playing childish games. This is understanding the psychology behind female desire. The invisible rules of attraction that she doesn't consciously articulate but reacts to instinctively. The first trigger is presence. And I don't mean physical presence. You don't have to be in the same room for this to work. I mean presence in your own life. Women are magnetically drawn to men who are fully alive, fully engaged with their world, and unapologetically occupied with their ambitions, passions, and victories. When you stop centering your life around her attention, your life becomes a force she notices even when she's silent. She feels your energy. She senses your power. She may not call, but she begins to measure your absence against her desire. She starts wondering, why isn't he chasing? What is he doing that makes him so confident without me? The second trigger is unpredictability, and this is where most men get it wrong. They think unpredictability means be mysterious or play games. It doesn't. True unpredictability comes from cultivating a life rich in experiences, emotions, and personal victories. You don't check in at exactly 900 p.m. every night. You don't respond to every story or text immediately. You are fully present in your world, and the randomness of your life creates a pull she can't resist. She begins to notice that your attention isn't guaranteed, and scarcity paired with value is one of the most primal triggers of desire. The third trigger is subtle tension, not drama, not conflict, but the kind of tension that comes from knowing you have boundaries, standards, and self-respect. When she senses that your energy is not at her disposal 24/7, a tiny spark of uncertainty ignites in her subconscious. This isn't insecurity, it's curiosity, intrigue, and desire. It's a reminder that you are not just another option. You are someone she has to earn. Someone she must genuinely engage with rather than passively expect. Then comes the invisible mastery of communication. Men often text with need, desperation, or over-explanation. High-value men communicate with precision. Every word counts. Every interaction leaves a psychological imprint. You text with intention. You make her feel something. Amusement, admiration, or subtle challenge without asking for her attention. You become the narrative she can't ignore, the story she can't stop thinking about. And here's the most important part. When you finally respond after her silence, it's brief, confident, and charged with value. No over-explaining, no apology, no begging, just presence, clarity, and a touch of intrigue that makes her want to reciprocate. But here's the psychological twist. Women are naturally wired to respond to men who are both emotionally stable and scarce. You don't need to chase. You don't need to plead. You simply need to embody these triggers in your daily life. Your confidence, independence, unpredictability, subtle tension, and value-driven communication create an invisible gravity. And once she feels that pull, the dynamic flips. The woman who never called first will start seeking you. She will text first. She will check in. She will initiate contact, not because you forced it, but because she feels compelled to respond to the power you radiate. This is the hidden psychology most men never learn, and it's why so many fall into the trap of chasing. Chasing kills desire. Cultivating invisible value ignites it. You are not competing with other men. You are competing with her expectations, her comfort, and her habitual patterns. When you rise above that, she rises to meet you, often without realizing why. And that, my friend, is the moment when silence stops being a problem and becomes a weapon in your favor, a tool that amplifies your presence rather than diminishes it. Now, let's go deeper into her subconscious, into the part of her mind that decides desire before she even realizes it herself. Most men never notice this. But female attraction operates on invisible currents, subtle emotional signals, and the quiet assurance that a man possesses life on his own terms. When she doesn't call first, it's not always a test. It's a reflection of how she gauges who deserves her attention. And understanding this is what separates men who are forgotten from men who are unforgettable. Women respond to energy, to the force of your presence, not to the frequency of your messages. Every moment you spend waiting for her call is a moment you could be investing in yourself. Every hour spent over-analyzing her silence is an hour lost, building a life she will eventually notice and desire. High-value men internalize this truth. The pull of attraction is invisible, and it grows in proportion to the space you occupy in your own world, not the space you try to occupy in hers. Here's a key insight most men miss. Desire is cultivated through absence, but sustained through emotional and psychological resonance. If she never calls, you don't fill the void with messages. You fill your life with experiences that make your energy magnetic. You develop skills, pursue passions, deepen friendships, and refine your body and mind. Each achievement, Each story, each small victory becomes a silent signal she can't ignore. She starts to imagine you in moments she isn't present for. She wonders what you're doing, who you're meeting, and why you're so untouchable yet so magnetic. And here's the psychological shift that changes everything. You stop framing her silence as rejection and start framing it as an opportunity. An opportunity to elevate yourself, to create a life so compelling that her attention becomes an honor rather than an expectation. Most men fail because they interpret her actions as personal. The truth is, it's rarely about you. It's about how she perceives attention, desire, and emotional value. When you understand this, you stop chasing and start orchestrating the dynamic invisibly. Another subtle but critical layer is emotional unpredictability. Not volatility, not drama, but the ability to be fully present, then gracefully absent, then intentionally engaging. You don't text to fill silence. You text to create moments of tension, intrigue, and desire. You become a story, a challenge, a presence that she cannot take for granted. When done correctly, her silence becomes a mirror reflecting her own desire. She begins to call or text first, not because you forced her, but because your energy demands acknowledgement. Finally, mindset is the invisible pillar that supports all of this. The man who understands female psychology doesn't act out of need, fear, or ego. He acts from strategy, confidence, and inner authority. Each time she doesn't initiate, it is a reminder to reinforce your own standards, to embody self-possession, and to cultivate a life so magnetic that her attention is drawn to you naturally. Silence becomes your ally, not your enemy. Her first call or text, when it comes, feels earned, deserved, and utterly compelling. This is where most men never reach because they fail to see the invisible rules. The truth is simple. Attraction is not about frequency. It's about quality and energy. She responds to your presence in the world, your independence, your unpredictability, and the subtle tension that makes her wonder why you answered her beck and call. When you master this, she stops ignoring you. She starts noticing. She starts initiating. And suddenly, the woman who never called first becomes the one chasing, intrigued by the man who refused to chase her for nothing. Now, let's bring it all together. You've learned the invisible rules, the psychology behind why she never calls or texts first, the triggers that create desire, and the mindset shifts that turn silence into a tool of attraction rather than a source of anxiety. But knowing isn't enough. Real transformation happens when you apply this knowledge with precision, consistency, and emotional clarity. First, understand this. You are not competing with other men. You are competing with her expectations, her comfort, and the habits she's built around attention. If she's used to you always initiating, she's comfortable. Comfortable is predictable. Predictable is forgettable. You must step out of that cycle by elevating your presence, your energy, and your value. Live your life like she's not the center of it and watch the dynamic shift invisibly. Second, your energy is everything. High V value men radiate a subtle confidence that cannot be faked. It's visible in your posture, your voice, your daily actions, and even your silence. When she doesn't call, do not panic. Do not overthink. Do not chase. Instead, focus on the energy you bring into the world. Pursue your passions, strengthen your body, expand your mind, build your social and professional spheres. The more magnetic your life becomes, the more she feels compelled to reach out. She senses power, independence, and desirability in ways she cannot articulate, but she will act on it subconsciously. Third, master the art of selective engagement. When she finally does initiate even a simple text, your response must carry value, not just any response. It should evoke curiosity, emotion, or intrigue. Avoid over-explaining, apologizing, or giving more attention than is deserved. Let your words reinforce the energy you've been cultivating offline. Every interaction should make her feel a subtle tension, a pull, a sense that your attention is valuable and her engagement must be earned. Fourth, embrace emotional unpredictability. This isn't about playing games, it's about cultivating a life that is rich, vibrant, and occasionally surprising. You aren't always available. You are not defined by her timeline. You are defined by your own rhythm, your own victories, and your own magnetic energy. And when you strike the perfect balance, presence in your own world, and selective engagement with her world, you create irresistible tension. Desire begins to grow naturally. Curiosity sparks, and the woman who never called or texted first starts to initiate subtly, almost without realizing it. Finally, this is the mindset that changes everything. Every moment of silence is a test of your self-possession. Every unanswered hour is an opportunity to elevate yourself. Every impulse to chase is a chance to practice patience, strategy, and power. The men who master this dynamic don't just attract attention. They create desire, intrigue, and respect on an entirely new level. Silence becomes your ally, your tool, and your amplifier of attraction. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about the last time she didn't reach out. Ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of your energy you gave away unnecessarily in that moment. Reflect on that number in the comments. Then commit to a strategy, build your life, radiate value, and watch her start initiating without even realizing why. If you're ready to shift the balance, like this video, subscribe for more insights that women never reveal, and share this with a friend who needs to understand the hidden rules of attraction. Here's a question for you. If you could only change one habit today to make her start texting first, which habit would it be? Comment your answer below because the first step to transformation is awareness and action.